Okay, so we have a consent agenda for this evening, and that consists of approval of the town meeting video summary and the upcoming town meetings of July 9th, August 13th, September 10th, and October 8th. Does anybody have any of those items they'd like to remove from the consent agenda?
No, I make a motion we accept.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Seconded.
We have a motion and a second. Do you want to take a vote? All approve?
Yay.
Aye.
And any nays? Nope. Aye, okay. So that's unanimous 4-0. Public presentation, we have resolution 2024-08, the fiscal 24 budget amendment. Town administrator, would you like to present that?
Yes. So what you have before you is, if you remember, I believe it's when President Biden came into office, he created the ARPA funds, American Recovery Plan. It had a couple different names, but all of the communities in the country received basically COVID reimbursement monies to help offset economic impacts as a result of COVID. And under that bill, communities or people who received, entities that received that money had until December of 2024 to allocate how they were going to use the money. And you have to spend all the money by, I believe it's December of 2026 there. So basically all the communities started receiving this money in, I'm gonna say roughly late 2020. And you were always able to spend the money as it came in, but you had to have it allocated by December of 2024. And so the town has some of that ARPA money left over. So there's been a lot of changes in the federal law and how you can use this fund. I can tell you when it first came out, it was incredibly complicated. Now the federal government has recognized the difficulties of it, especially for smaller communities. So they basically, you're going to hear this term, have said that you can use it to reimburse yourself for any of your expenses of town government in our particular case. So we have earmarked that money for economic development in our downtown area, some water and sewer line expansions and upgrades that we would like to do. That is some of the money we use to buy the church at 19 Main Street. And so we have a large chunk of money allocated to redo that church there. So the money, in theory, has been spoken for, but we have to have it officially allocated. So the easiest way to do that is to do a budget amendment for the budget period that we're already in, and basically just declare that as revenue on your budget. So said a little bit differently, the money sitting in a bank account on a piece of paper, you're going to say that you reimbursed yourself. You're doing that by adding revenue to the budget that you approved last year, so that revenue line item's going to go up, but it doesn't change the allocation of the money. It's still sitting in a bank account, and you can use it for, the items that we had talked about. So in order to officially do this, and to be in compliance with the federal regulations regarding the allocation, we need to do this budget amendment. So that's what this resolution is tonight. And if you're comfortable with that, I'll read the resolution into the minutes.
Please do, sir.
Okay. So you have resolution 2024-08, a resolution amending the previously adopted annual budget for the fiscal year July 1st, 2023 through June 30th, 2024, and showing the obligation and expenditure of all coronavirus local fiscal recovery funds. So skipping through the first two paragraphs, the boilerplate, the third paragraph, whereas Chapter 9 of the Code of Ordinances of the Town of Rising Sun titled Finance Finance, Taxation, Business, and Trade contains provisions that grant the Board of Commissioners with the power to appropriate municipal money for any purpose and to levy, assess, and collect ad valorem property taxes or any other type of tax allowed by law, and to have general management and control of the finances of the town. Whereas the town adopted the annual budget for 2024 fiscal year on June 13, 2023. And whereas the town received federal funds under the Coronavirus Local Fiscal Recovery Funds under the American Rescue Plan Act, which requires those funds to be obligated by December 31st of 2024 and expended by December 31st of 2026. And whereas the town has spent roughly $360,361.53 on economic development initiatives involving the purchase and rehabilitation of the church located at 19 East Main Street for a community center and Main Street development area. Whereas as provided for under Section 6 of the reporting guidelines titled Revenue Replacement, subsection 6.1 titled Provisions of Government Services, the town is amending the 2024 fiscal year budget by showing the obligation and expenditure of the remaining funds of $2,379,645.12 by reimbursing the town for expenses in the general fund operations for fiscal year 2024. And whereas the budget will be amended by increasing the previously approved budget revenue of $2,945,295 by an additional $2,379,645.12, resulting in a new projected end of the fiscal year revenue amount of $5,324,940.12. Therefore, be it enacted and resolved that the Mayor and Commissioners of the Town of Rising Sun wish to adopt the proposed fiscal year 2024 budget amendment to reflect this obligation and expenditure. Now, therefore, be it further resolved that the Mayor and Commissioners have passed, approved, and adopted this resolution on this 18th day of June 2024.
I make a motion, we adopt resolution 2024-08.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Do we have any discussion? Okay. All in favor, say aye.
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 Ayes have it. Resolution 2024-09 FY25 real estate tax. Town Administrator, do you have any
Yes.
discussion on that?
Also, it looks like the mayor has just joined us. I
Okay.
think he's listening.
Hey guys, I can hear you good, thank you.
Okay. So this is a resolution adopting the real estate tax rate for fiscal year 2025. Now, there's been a change in the way the law was written. In the past, you had to do advertisements if your constant yield tax rate was going to yield more than $25,000 of revenue. The law got changed last year, and that you only have to do an advertisement and public hearing if you're actually going to change your tax rate. The town of Rising Sun is not changing its tax rate, but we do want to adopt it by resolution, and if you're good with that, I have the resolution to read into the minutes.
Please do, sir.
So I'll skip the first three boilerplates. Whereas the town has received notice from the Maryland Department of Assessment and Taxation that for the tax year beginning July 1st, 2023, the estimated real property assessable base will increase by 5.55%.
Calvin, should that be 2024?
Yes, it should be.
Okay.
Yes, so we need to make that correction there. Thank you. Will increase by 5.55% from $224,765,160 to $237,233,044, which is a $12,467,884 increase over last year. whereas if the town of Rising Sun shall maintain the current tax rate of 0.460 per $100 of assessment and will realize a 5.55% increase in real property tax revenue, resulting in $57,352 of new real property tax revenues in which to use to provide critical and important community services. And whereas Section 6-308 of the Tax Property Article Annotated Code of Maryland provides the concept of the constant yield tax rate, which requires the Department of Assessment and Taxation to certify to all taxing authorities a constant yield tax rate that will produce the same revenue in the coming taxable year that was produced in the prior taxable year. Whereas the constant yield tax rate is described above, suggested that the town could formally adopt a new tax rate of 0.4358, which would result in a total reduction of the real estate tax to be collected by roughly 5.55%, but would still result in the same total tax revenue collected as the prior year, but not cover the annual increases in service costs. And whereas the town of Rising Sun, like other small municipalities, is facing significant challenges in providing basic services such as streets and sidewalk maintenance, parks, trash collection, and other amenities to our residents. However, Rising Sun is also unique in the amount of other services that are provided through real estate tax revenue, such as daily police patrols and protection, weekly trash recycling and yard waste collection, Sunfest, Spooktacular, Winter Extravaganza, Tractor Parade, Tiger Trot, Little League Parade, Carol Sing, and other family fun activities. And whereas the past year has been challenging as our society has faced an often fluctuating cost of inflation that is currently around 3.3%, but was as high as 7% earlier in the year. In addition to the town's expenses being dramatically impacted by inflation, consumer goods pricing has risen 20.8% since the pandemic-induced recession began in February of 2020, which is well above the historic average for any 4-year period. And whereas the town recognizes that this is an impact on all of our residents and businesses, and we continue to work to automate and streamline our services to achieve greater efficiency in services while maintaining comparable tax rate to the other 7 Cecil County towns, with our current tax estimated to be the lowest overall tax rate in the county, the lowest percentage of tax rate increase over the past 8 years, the second lowest real estate tax burden per resident, and the third lowest tax burden on the median household income of our residents. And whereas the town of Rising Sun is the only local government that provides a 2% discount on all real estate tax and debt service tax, if paid in full by August 1st, again, we got to do 2024. And whereas the elected body is committed to meeting all of the challenges facing our community and to continue improving upon the services and quality of life of our residents while keeping the tax rate impact on our residents to a minimum. Therefore, be it enacted and resolved that the town will maintain the current tax rate of 0.46 for each $100 of assessed value for the 2024 fiscal year. Now, therefore, be it further resolved that the mayor and commissioners have passed, approved, and adopted this resolution on this 18th day of June 2024.
In the matter of Resolution 2024-09, with the noted corrections, do we have a motion to approve?
Make a motion to approve?
Seconded.
Thank you. So, is there any discussion? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Resolution 2024-10, FY25 budget adoption and collection rates. Town Administrator.
Yes, I do have that.
Thank you.
So, a couple things that sort of we need to do before we actually adopt that budget resolution is to look at a couple of things. And I think, again, when we always talk about how all of this comes together over the last 15 years, as I said at the last meeting, there is a methodology to everything this elected body and previous elected bodies have been trying to do to get out of the hole that the town found itself in around 2009 and 10. And so one of the things I always like to highlight here, and you can see it on the screen, is back in 2010, the total assessed value of all the properties was $222,260,213. So when we talk about the impact of going into a sewer and water moratorium and the impact of the housing bubble, recession, and all of 2008 and 2009, this still holds true today, that in 2010, the total value of all of our properties was $222 million. And over the years, you can see where there were no new investments in the town of Rising Sun, and actually the value of properties in the town of Rising Sun started dropping significantly. So when you look at just going to 2011, we lost $24 million of value, property value, which is what drives the revenue that we bring in from a real estate tax standpoint. And so it wasn't until 2023, last year, that our values returned to that 2010 number. Furthermore, in terms of the total revenue that we ended up collecting, it took us until 2021 to bring in the same amount of revenue that we were bringing in 2010. So when I talk about us balancing budgets on nickels and dimes every year while still maintaining services, while also lowering the tax rate on two different occasions, I've said this many times, I think past elected bodies and this elected body have done a really good job of holding all those loose ends together. And I know nobody likes paying taxes, none of us do. But I do think there's some truth to the fact that we do have the fourth lowest tax rate in the county and all those things that I mentioned above. So you can start to see that as the town of Rising Sun resolved its sewer and water issue in 2018, you can see that the annual growth over here started to increase. Where we're starting in 2018, we saw a 1.22% increase, 1.37, to where it's projected to be 5.55% increase, which is what was in the previous resolution there that I had mentioned. The other thing that I want to highlight is when we do our budget, we do not budget every nickel and dime that comes in, because we don't have a lot of new investments coming in. We don't have the luxury like other communities do, where the real estate tax just generates an additional $150,000, $200,000 a year in surplus that you can put into a rainy day fund. Ours doesn't do that. We balance it on $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 surpluses. So in order to build us even more of a buffer, we only allocate either 98 or 99% of the projected real estate revenue coming in to give us a little bit more of a buffer and for unexpected expenses that might come in. The other thing that I wanted to show you here is when you compare what is projected versus what actually comes in, the town has gotten the benefit of the state being very disciplined in their evaluation, but the end result is always 1 or 2 percentage points higher in what we actually bring in. So again, that gives us a little bit of a buffer when we're trying to balance our budget. So I wanted to highlight that. The other thing I wanted to show you here is, here's the document that we use to calculate what the projected tax yield is. The state says we're gonna get $1,091,000. We are only going to balance our budget based upon $1,070,000. So that's that 2% difference in what we're actually looking to project. So I wanted to highlight that for you. The other item that I wanted to cover is the actual proposed budget itself. And you have your general fund budget and your proprietary fund budget. As I said last year, you can either look at it as we're, and I'll say this for the mayor, we're an airplane that's trying to take off, and the runway's getting shorter and shorter every year. Because when we talk about in the previous resolution of the inflation being 3.3% now, but has been as high as 7%, and we all know, I think we all can appreciate, although the federal government tries to tell us that inflation is coming down, we're all seeing that not really manifest in some of the things that we're paying, whether it be an electric bill or the cost for groceries, whatever. They're just not matching up. So we are no different. And one of the best ways I explain it to people is, if you have seen an increase in your home electric bill, imagine operating a 3-phase wastewater treatment plant. And when you get an 8 or 9% increase, on electric in your home, that's really a big impact on the bigger things that we have to do. And, healthcare coverages always goes up 15% every year. So we are running out of runway to some degree, and we're also running into an issue, if you want to look at it this way, where a ship coming in and the harbor, the depth is getting a little bit less and less as we get closer to land, with land being the development and the investments we made on our sewer and water in the past. When we talk about why the sewer and water rates are where they are, is to get more capacity, to have more investment coming into the town. And I just showed you by the numbers, in 2018, when we finally solved our water and sewer, we saw new investments coming into the town, which resulted in more real estate tax. So we all know we're facing some significant land development impacts over the next 2 years. That's going to be a lot of real estate revenue that's going to come in, that's going to give us more runway and make it that our ship doesn't bottom out, in the harbor, if that makes sense. So we're holding on is what I'm doing. You're going to see in here that our numbers are still really close. However, we did not raise the real estate tax rate. You're going to see our sewer fund is really struggling to pay its bills, but we're not proposing to raise the sewer rate either. We're trying to hold the line on that. So there's a lot of things that when we talk about holding the line, we're not necessarily looking at cutting essential services, and we're not looking to cut needed updates that we need. We don't want to go cheap and then pay the consequences down the road. We've just, over the years, the staff, the elected body, we've been very aggressive about finding new and better ways to provide the services, to have those expenses go down that way, in that regard. So we still have a lot of things in here that are important for our community. We want to continue to automate our website. We want to continue to get our ordinances and codes updated on a regular basis, so we're paying for services for that. We all hear the horror stories of communities being victimized by fraud and cybersecurity. We, over the years, have updated all of our systems, with the exception of our utility billing system, meaning that was still housed in-house on a server. We are investing about $11,000 in getting that into a cloud-based system that will come with all the cybersecurity bells and whistles that are needed in that. I can also tell you that we recently, a couple days ago, applied for a grant to try to get that covered. So although we have it in the budget, if we get a grant, we'll be able to offset that too. So there's a lot of good things in the budget itself. Updating of some vehicles in our Public Works Department. We have one vehicle in our Public Works Department where the cab is basically held on by C-clamps to the frame. And so it's long overdue to be replaced, but here's a good example. A couple years ago in 2017-18, in 16, we replaced the same kind of truck we're gonna get now for about $55,000, $60,000 completely outfitted. It's now over $90,000 for that same truck for our Public Works employees. So just to give you that snapshot, you go from 60 to 90, that's $30,000 there. We only got $52,000 of new real estate tax this year. So it's numbers that move all over the place, but they are managed in a way that we can still upgrade our equipment and stay ahead of those issues. So that's sort of in a nutshell everything that's in the general fund. When you jump down to the bottom of it, you will see that last year's projected revenue was $2,945,295. This year's projected revenue is $3,139,172. Expenses last year were $2,940,092, and this year's projected expenses are $3,124,457. Last year we balanced the budget on a $5,203 surplus. This year we're balancing the budget on a $14,715 surplus. So the margins are still tight. We do have reserve funds being transferred in to help balance the budget. There are some big ticket items that we transfer those monies in, that if we want to pursue those big ticket items, we have it in the budget. If we don't, then we don't. To give you an example, over the years, we used to kick the can down the road on a lot of things that were in our budget. And we just, decided not to do some of those things. So that's the general fund budget. The proprietary fund, our water fund, if we start with that, our water fund seems to be recovering. Let me preface it by saying, when I said at the beginning that the elected body has always been very sensitive to the impacts on our residents, the elected body has delayed doing rate increases in the past because of the reality, whether it was COVID and being concerned that a lot of people were going to be unemployed. So they did not follow the rate schedule to keep up with the debt service that we had. Hopefully, we are starting to climb out of that because our water revenue has, I believe, and I'll confirm it, but it has like $112,000 surplus. Now, I think it's important that everybody understand when we talk about surpluses, it's very important that we build reserve funds up, because the reason why the town had to get a loan for $16 million for a sewer plant and another $10 million for a new water line is because we didn't have any rainy day funds. And so when you set your rate structure up, someday we're gonna be to the point where we can have a reasonable rate structure for our residents that still develops rainy day funds, because these big ticket items at the sewer plant, they're all getting up to be about 10 or 12 years of age. And the cost to repair some of those things is in the millions, not the hundreds. And so we need to start positioning ourselves where we have money to do that and not have to go out and get loans to do it. So when we talk about a surplus, again, when you look at when you look at financial, people say that any business or your household should have maybe 6 months of revenue in reserve. If you're a business, they always say you should have about 1.5 years in reserve. We don't come anywhere near that, and we haven't for the last basic 2 decades, but we're slowly getting there. So the water fund doesn't really have any big new expenditures in it, but we always build things in there, like if we get a water main break that's above and beyond what our people are capable of doing, we have contracted services in there to be able to handle that kind of stuff. When you get down, part of updating the CUSI, the utility billing system, that's being picked up a third, basically a third, actually, I think it's 50-50 between the two funds in there. So that $12,000 I talked about will be picked up in the sewer and water fund. So we have, at the end of the day, the water fund revenue last year was projected to be $1,256,437. This year it's projected to be $1,302,946 of revenue. Total expenses, and again, jumping up here to this row here, government accounting standards require you to show depreciation as an expense, but it's what we call a non-cash expense. It's not money coming out of your pocket. So when we do our cash in, cash out budget, we always deduct that depreciation out to get the real number of what the expense will actually be. So the actual expense for the town last year was $1,221,072. This year, the expense is $1,189,270.20. So that leaves us with and actually I gotta double check that. Down at the bottom, it gives you the surplus on the water revenue. I believe for some reason it dropped off. It's like $113,000 surplus that we're gonna have. Yeah, here it is right here. $113,668 is the bottom line surplus on our water fund. Last year we were projected to have $35,365 in reserve. So the water fund is doing pretty good. The sewer fund is the one that's really lagging and falling behind. But again, where the elected body is not looking to raise the sewer rates for that. Some of the big ticket items in there, both the water fund and the sewer fund are picking up a percentage of the new equipment for the public works department, the new vehicles. That's one of the things that's in there. Our contracted services for the sewer plant, when you want to talk about a cost increase, that's going through the roof. That is really getting high. And this will probably be the year where we really need to think about maybe bringing that back in-house. To recap, one of the reasons why the town did not hire its own operator was because there really wasn't enough work for a full-time employee, and to some degree, it can be a little bit hard to get someone who's a licensed plant operator who also wants to go out and cut grass and fill potholes and plant flowers and do that kind of stuff. I'm not saying it can't. It can happen, but it could be an issue. But the biggest problem was we wanted a third party to be able to assume the liability of anything that went wrong at the sewer plant, meaning we had a brand new piece of equipment, and for us to bring in a new employee and turn that over to them, we could have made some mistakes that the town could be liable for. Especially when you look at the history of the town being fined by MDE for issues with the sewer plant. So we went with a third-party vendor to provide that service for that main reason of liability. But now it's getting really expensive. And I think internally, from a staff standpoint, Judy, Josh, myself, we have a lot better of an understanding of what goes on at the sewer plant. So we're probably more comfortable in the idea of going out and hiring someone to operate the plant, full-time, and that cost will be significantly less than what we're paying in a third party. So that's food for thought in next year's budget cycle. But again, that's a big expense there that's going up and up every year. So when you look at the sewer fund, last year's sewer revenue was $1,271,195. This year's projected revenue is $1,320,438. The total expense last year was $1,302,130, and the projected expense this year is $1,318,416.80 for a net to the positive of $2,021.20. So again, we're balancing this on nickels and dimes. It's not the best situation to be in, but heck, we've been doing it for the last, 10 years, and we've managed to get through it. So when you look at the proprietary fund as a whole, the total revenue between the two funds last year was $2,527,632. The total expense was $2,523,202 for a profit margin of $4,430. This year, the revenue between the two funds is $2,623,384. Projected expenses, again, minus the depreciation, is $2,507,694 for a net income to the positive of $115,690. Again, 99% of that is the water fund doing fine. So those are the numbers behind the actual budget resolution. So if you have any questions on the budget numbers, I can answer them for you. If not, I can read the resolution into the minutes if you'd like.
I'm good with you reading resolution.
Please.
Anybody else?
Okay. So this is a resolution adopting an annual budget for the fiscal year July 1st, 2024 through June 30th, 2025, and authorizing collection of taxes herein levied, assessing service charges, and appropriating funds for the fiscal year. I'll skip through the first three boilerplates, go to the fourth one. Whereas the town has received a notice from the Maryland Department of Assessments and Taxation that for the tax year beginning July 1st, 2024, the estimated real property assessable base will increase by 5.55% from 2024 from $2,224,765,160 to $237,233,044, which is a $12,467,884 increase over last year. Let me stop and say for people watching on TV, that's not new revenue. The town's not getting $12 million of new real estate tax. It's just the total assessed values are going up. that high. Whereas the town of Rising Sun, like other small municipalities, is facing significant challenges in providing basic services such as streets and sidewalk maintenance, parks, trash collection, and other amenities to our residents. However, Rising Sun is also unique in the amount of other services that are provided through real estate revenue, such as daily police patrols and protection, weekly trash recycling and yard waste collection, Sunfest Spectacular Winter Extravaganza, Tractor Parade, Tiger Trot, Little League Parade, Carol Sing, and other family fun activities. Whereas the past year has been challenging as our society has faced an often fluctuating cost of inflation that is currently around 3.3%, but was as high as 7% earlier in the year. In addition to the town's expenses being dramatically impacted by inflation, consumer goods pricing has risen 20.8% since the pandemic-induced recession began in February of 2020, which is well above the historic average for any 4-year period. And whereas the town recognizes that this is an impact on all of our residents and businesses, and we continue to work to automate and streamline our services to achieve greater efficiency in services while maintaining comparable tax rate to the other 7 Cecil County towns, with our current tax estimated to be the 4th lowest overall tax rate in the county, lowest percentage of tax rate increase over the past 8 years, 2nd lowest real estate tax burden per resident, 3rd lowest tax burden on the median household income of our residents. And whereas the town of Rising Sun is the only local government that provides a 2% discount on all real estate and debt service tax if paid in full by August 1st, 2024. And whereas although the last 2 decades have been challenging, the patience and resiliency of our residents and businesses has clearly pushed our community to the front of the line as a place to raise a family and operate a business. Whereas, and to that end, the mayor and commissioners have developed an annual operating budget for primary governmental and proprietary fund activities for fiscal year 2025, which is attached, that are designed to make investments in our infrastructure, Main Street revitalization, repave our roads, fix sidewalks, and offer additional amenities and services to our residents. And whereas the primary governmental fund has a balanced budget by way of reserve fund transfers to reflect possible expenditures that will be tied to the American Rescue Plan and the American Jobs Plan, the fund has total revenue projections of roughly $3,139,172 and projected expenditures of $3,124,457 and will result in a surplus of roughly $14,715. And whereas the proprietary fund has a balanced budget with total revenue projections of roughly $2,623,384 and projected expenditures of $2,507,694 which will result in a surplus of roughly $115,690. Whereas this budget will be based upon the following already established tax rates and service charges as follows. The tax rate for all property and not otherwise exempted and located within the corporate limits of the town of Rising Sun shall remain at 0.46 for each $100 of assessed value as approved in Resolution 2024-09. The Cecil County Department of Finance will collect the real property tax and the debt service and utility tax listed on the annual real estate tax bill on behalf of the town of Rising Sun. The town will continue to provide a 2% discount upon payment in full of any real property tax if taxes are paid in full by the end of July 2024, and a 1% penalty each month for any payments received after October 1st of 2024 and until the balance is paid in full. Such taxes on land and improvements shall be computed on the valuation of said properties as certified by the town of Rising Sun by the Maryland State Department of Assessment. The tax rate for all tangible personal property of businesses, utilities, or contract carriers operating in the corporate limits of the town of Rising Sun shall remain at 0.90 per 100 of assessed value of all tangible operating personal property, including commercial inventory. In computing and levying such taxes on tangible personal property, the valuation of said properties is certified to the town of Rising Sun by the Maryland Department of Assessment shall be used as the assessed valuation of tangible personal property. Number 6, the town shall maintain one flat $384.36 debt service and utility tax assessment on real property tax parcel that is currently developed or is vacant, not developed, but can be developed in accordance with the town's zoning codes unless such property is declared non-developable and currently exempted as spelled out in Resolution 2016-10. The charge is assessed against an individual dwelling unit and/or commercial space with the intent to have each unit cover a portion of the cost related to debt service financing of town buildings, parks, and property, past utility upgrades, vehicles, streets, and sidewalk restoration, and regardless of the types of services provided, the level of service or the lack thereof. This assessment will be reflected on the annual real property tax bill issued by the county and will be subject to the same discounts and penalty fees as real property tax. Properties with multiple dwelling units or commercial spaces shall be charged a debt service for each of those units, which will be billed separately by the town. The town shall collect on a regular schedule, without extra charge, all normal household originated trash and recycling from single-family dwellings in accordance with Chapter 7 of the Town Code. In addition, certain commercial properties and locations with multiple collection points may also be provided services in accordance with Chapter 7, with the cost for those services to be assessed in accordance with the town's fee schedule as adopted and modified by the mayor and commissioners. Some revenue projections as shown in this budget are related to fees as indicated in the town's current fee schedule as set by resolution from time to time by the Board of Commissioners. Number 9, the town's utility rates will continue to follow the prescribed pro forma plan for water and sewers adopted by Resolution 2016-13 and is modified from time to time by resolution of the Mayor and Commissioners, with the rates to match projected charges for the calendar year 2025 as shown in the town's water and sewer rate table. Discounts for early payment of utility bills, failure to pay utility bills, building permits, and other service fees due to the town will continue to be spelled out in the town's adopted fee schedule, which can be amended from time to time by resolution of the Mayor and Commissioners. Therefore, be it enacted and resolved that the Mayor and Commissioners of the town of Rising Sun wish to adopt the proposed fiscal year 2025 annual budget to include the tax rate service charges as set forth above. And it could potentially be adopted tonight on the 18th. Let me back up 1 second and clarify one thing. When we talk about not raising the sewer rate, what we're saying is we are sticking to the original sewer rate schedule that was adopted in 2016. We're not adopting any new rate in addition to what was scheduled. So yes, as per that schedule, there will be a sewer and water rate increase in January. But again, as you can see in the budget, there aren't a whole lot of margins in these areas. So it's one of the reasons why those charges do need to go up until we start seeing the benefit of new investments and developments in the community. So that concludes the reading of that resolution.
In the matter of Resolution 2024-10, do I have motion?
I make a motion to accept.
Seconded.
Any public, or any comment from the board? Hearing none, do we have, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Unfinished business, we have none. Is there any new business to come before the board? Hearing none, do we have any citizens' input? I'm guessing not. Staff reports, town administrator.
I have no report, but before we go to the chief, Judy, I'm not sure, I don't have you on the agenda because it was a last meeting agenda. If you wanted to cover what the Public Works is doing over on Crothers.
Well, they're actually fixing a water issue that we have over there.
Right.
So they coordinated with the people at 8 Cooper, making sure that we were not impacting those businesses. And 8 Cooper was the only location that we were going to have any impact. So they're going to be coming in tonight and fixing that.
And that's a line that's been leaking for a long time, that they're gonna cut off and cap.
Yeah.
So that's all I have in my report. Judy, if you wanna pick up.
Yeah, I really don't have a lot. Just to say that glad to be back and
Yeah, we're glad to have you back.
Yes, very much so.
looking forward to continuing on.
Chief, do you have a report?
I don't, but I do have a couple things that, well, I guess it will be a report, I guess. If you noticed recently on social media and on the news, there has been talk about the increased threat level for terrorism in this country. And I'd like to go back and reiterate what we've said in the past about see something, say something. Recently we had an event down in Veterans Park where some teenagers witnessed some suspicious behavior inside of a vehicle. And they had the wherewithal to reach out to their parents and make sure we were aware of it. We were aware of it. We got notified of it, got down there in a relatively quick amount of time and investigated, found out it was nothing, but it had the potential to be something that would be very impactful for the people that were involved. So again, like I said, if you see something that just does not seem right for you, pick up the phone and call us. If you need to see an officer, you want to talk to an officer face to face, the only way you're going to get one in this county is by dialing 911. Our office is not fully staffed 24 hours a day, so you have to dial 911 to get us to come out to see you. But again, if you see something, say something. That's my report.
Mayor Marion, do you have a report tonight?
My report's pretty brief, guys. Chief and I visited Calvert Manor. They had a Flag Day ceremony recently. It was a wonderful event. We spent some time with the residents as well as the nurses there, and met some new friends from the Army National Guard that Chief is going to see if they would like to come out for National Night Out. It was a good thing that we attended. In addition, I wanted to say that we have the upcoming summer conference. We're excited about that. Lots of stuff going on. And I will save the parks announcement for you, Commissioner Warnick. And that's the end of my report.
Thank you, Mayor Marion. I guess Jay didn't join. Okay. Commissioner Braun, do you have a report?
I have no report.
Okay. Commissioner Kleiner, do you have a report?
Have no report.
Commissioner Pearson, do you have a report?
No.
Okay. Well, I'm happy to announce, as the mayor announced yesterday on Facebook, that the town has been awarded $300,000 from the Maryland Community Parks and Playground program to enhance Triangle Park. I know the mayor has worked tirelessly as well as staff has worked on this to get this grant, and this is going to include a new fenced tot lot playground to replace the equipment that was to replace the former Diddy Richardson Park that we had equipment that had kind of exceeded its lifespan. It's going to include the installation of modern handicap accessible restrooms, add a dog fountain for to keep our furry friends hydrated, and to add EV charging stations in the parking complex, as well as finish the walking trail around the park. Many of those projects have been going on for the better part of a decade, and it's good to see that park finally come to full completion. So, thank you, Mayor, for all your hard work on getting that funding allocated for the town. The Board of Zoning Appeals and Planning Commission schedule. Town Administrator, would you like to report on that?
Yes, tentatively, we don't, we have those 3 land development projects in the queue, but none of them have proceeded for me to put on an agenda upcoming. I'm anticipating some planning commission cases potentially in July. If not in July, definitely by August. We should at least have 1 or 2, if not all 3, starting to really come in to the planning commission around August and July. And the Board of Zoning Appeals, that is as needed when there's variances and special exceptions needed.
At this point, I don't believe we have any upcoming town events. Upcoming holidays, Town Hall will be closed tomorrow, Wednesday, June 19th for Juneteenth, and will be closed on Thursday, July 4th and Friday, July 5th for Independence Day. Is that on a Thursday?
Yeah.
Okay. I thought it was on Wednesday. For Independence Day, trash, recycling, and yard waste schedule. Again, yard waste will be collected every Monday. Trash will be picked up Thursdays pending weather-related issues. I don't believe there's a trash schedule change for this week with Juneteenth, but I think for,
No, Juneteenth is not a.
yeah, so is there one for 4th of July?
Yes.
Independence Day, so
Yeah.
trash will be delayed on that day. Recycling will be picked up on Tuesdays, and, here's the holiday schedule right here. Is there anything else to come before the board tonight? Okay.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Seconded.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, and all in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.
We're done.